In every single upgrade video we've ever done, we always talk about getting the right set of tyres. It's really important. It's the only contact you have with the trail, so if you could have your suspension set up completely perfectly and carbon fibre everywhere, but your bike's not going to ride very well if you have the wrong tyres on. So there's all sorts of different shapes, sizes, tread styles. In this video I'm going to talk you through some of them, so hopefully you can make a good decision about the right tyres for you. In this video, I'm going to be using Vittoria tyres because they make great tyres. They're also our brand partner here at GMBN, but hopefully this advice should help you with any brands. I'll be talking about common features across any tyres. Before we get into how to choose the right tyre for certain conditions, let's look at the actual construction of a tyre. Now, Doddy recently went to the Vittoria factory to do a tour and have a look. The bead of a tyre is the edge that fits into the rim. You get folded and wire beads, which serves their different purposes that we'll get into later on. Casing is the skeleton of the tyre as such. It plays a large part in the structural support of the tyre. Puncture protection, layers of material underneath the tread that helps prevent anything piercing the tyre. Sidewall, the sides of the tyre. Tread, the knobs of the tyre that provide the traction. So the first thing we'll look at is tread pattern, and this is going to be a big one to determine how much grip you get on the trail you ride. So you can see three different options here, from a traily tyre to an enduro to cross country. So you can see the different sizes of the knobs that are happening here, also the different design, different sort of shapes of these knobs. So this is really going to determine how well your tyre grips on your trail. So as you see here, these are fairly tightly packed, nice soft tread, but quite big treads as well. So that's going to work really well on hard packed terrain, whereas this one, this is the motor, you see it's much more widely spread, so this is going to work better in muddy or soft loamy conditions or in the wet, just because it's going to clear better and actually dig into terrain where that might float a bit on top of mud but work really well on rocks. This one's going to dig into mud, maybe not work so well on rocks. This one down to the cross-country tyre, you can see how they're much lower than both of these treads, so down to probably about 3mm depth and much more sort of small knobs. So this is going to roll really fast but not dig into the trail as well, definitely not in wet terrain. But on hard packed terrain you've still got a lot of rubber on the ground. Okay, let's look at the two traily enduro tyres because they are quite similar to each other. And you'll see that actually most tyres have differences between the centre knobs and the side knobs. The centre ones, they really give you the traction most of the time. So that's what you can be riding on when you're pedalling, braking, and really any time you're not cornering. So, you know, you see the difference in these. This traily tyre, the Martello, is lower and closer together. It's going to give you a lot of grip on hard packed terrain. This motor is going to be more grip in the mud, like I said, it's more spacing and deeper tread as well. But as you can see on the side knobs, now these become much bigger, so probably 4 or 5mm deep. So when you're leaning the bike over, that's what you're going to rely on to dig into the dirt. On the trail tyre, again, they're bigger, but they're closer, sort of spaced together. So again, on hard packed terrain, once you're leant over, these are going to give you a bigger footprint and a lot of grip. Sipes are little cuts in the knobs of tyres, designed to deform under pressure, which in turn gives more grip. One of the most important parts of a tyre is the rubber compound. Different rubber formulas can make an identical looking tyre perform completely differently. Softer rubber gives a lot of traction but rolls slowly and wears quickly. Often brands can use 2, 3 or even 4 compounds like Vittoria, with a harder, faster rolling, harder wearing tread in the middle and softer on the side tread. If we're looking at tread height, let's take two almost virtual ends, other ends of the spectrum to each other. We've got the motor versus the Barzo, which is a cross-country tyre, and then an enduro trail tyre. You can see this is much deeper. These are both 29-inch wheels, and actually to me, where I'm sat, this looks almost sort of 3 or 4 mil lower. So the whole diameter of the wheel is going to be smaller. Basically, this is all about the type of terrain you're riding. So this is going to dig into soft terrain, really aimed at aggressive riding, whereas the low profile tyre is more about rolling fast. So you can tell that these two tyres were designed for two completely different things, one for enduro trail, one for cross-country riding. Tyre treads are designed to work on particular terrain and in particular conditions. You will get specific sort of dry or wet tyres that work in those situations, but if you're like me, living in the UK, in winter, you can ride some pretty hard pack stuff, even dry rocks, and then go straight into some really soft mud or fresh trails. In that situation, you're going to need a good all-rounder tyre. You can get front and rear specific tyres, although there aren't many brands nowadays doing the same tyre front and rear. But more I'm talking about actually just having different tyre tread front to rear. So often you'll see in summertime people will put semi-slicks on the rear. It's going to be a faster rolling tyre because you'll just drop in that tyre tread in the middle, means it's going to roll much faster. One thing it won't do is brake as well, just because you're taking away those edges as well. So in this situation, I've got a steepish bit of trail, I'm coming down quick and I'm braking hard, so I'm relying really on the back tyre, those middle treads, to slow me down. Then when I'm hitting the corner, that's more about the front tyre, but also as I'm leaning the bike over, I'm going onto the side knobs of both the front and the rear. I've just done a run on that short downhill on my tyres. It worked pretty well on mixed terrain, but just for a bit of an idea, I'm going to have a go on my motors. So these are the bigger, deeper tread, much wider spaced, to see how much better they work in the mud and if there's any compromise to be had on the hard pack situation. So time to repeat that run, I think. Just like picking the type of bike that you want to buy, there's always going to be some sort of compromise when it comes to any components really, but with tyres, you know, on this trail it feels like on the hard pack stuff, both the trail tyre and the mud tyre grip pretty well, but it's in the mud where these really make the biggest difference, and that's where you really do lose the grip on other tyres. So for me, this feels like a good all-round tyre for winter in the UK, whereas I might keep the trail tyres for a good all-round tyre in summertime when you're not going into the deeper mud. The same goes for my cross-country tyre choice really. Most of the time I'll stick with quite a deep tread, but in summertime I'll stick something that's a bit faster, a bit lower profile. But most of the time I sort of, you know, I take the compromises and stay in the middle. For my cross-country bike, I have the trail casing on there, so slightly heavier weight. If I'm racing cross-country, I will go to the lighter weight tyre, but most of the time I stick with a bit more protection. Same with my enduro bike, most of the time in the middle, but if I'm racing, I go the other end of the scale and I'll stick a more protective tyre on. If I'm racing something like the Andes Pacifico, I'll go for that dual ply tyre where I don't want to risk a puncture and I don't mind dealing with that extra weight. If you look at the casing of a tyre, like I said before, it's the skeleton really, it's what the tyre is made up from. Let's compare two cross-country tyres. I've got the Barzo, which is the XC Race, versus the Piote, which is a trail tyre. Basically that sort of tells you really what to expect. So the cross-country tyre, on Vittorias they are coloured different as well, so skin wool for that and that anthracite grey for the trail tyre, which is a tougher tyre. XC Race is all about being super lightweight, so basically less material in there, so it's going to be lighter for those race situations, whereas a trail tyre has got more material in there, making it tougher, means that it's going to sort of roll around less, basically more puncture protection as well, but the payoff for that is that extra weight. So that's where you start looking at the construction of a tyre, things like the TPI, threads per inch, and sort of decide how tough a tyre do you want, how light a tyre do you want, and play off those two benefits against each other. Now moving up the scale to the trail tyres, again I've got this Martello in that grey sidewall, that is trail, and this is now the Enduro casing. So this is now dual ply, so 2 layers of rubber underneath that tread. What does it say on the back? 120 TPI, same as this one, but like I say, it's dual ply, so now it's heavier, but it's going to be much tougher, suited to enduro or even downhill riding, just much more puncture proof, less sort of tendency to roll around. And you'll find that a lot of manufacturers have this sort of handy guide on the back as well to tell you what that tread and what that tyre is going to be good for. So lots of stars for hard pack, less for wet and less for mud. It's good to know what sort of terrain you're likely to ride and make sure the tyres you choose will be suited to it. For example, if you're frequently riding in very rocky surfaces, you'll need tyres with greater puncture protection as well as stiffer sidewalls to deal with a harder impact. On the other side of the spectrum, if you ride smoother trails, tyres with thicker sidewalls will most likely just slow you down and give little benefit. Riding style can determine the casing you go for as well. If you're an aggressive rider or a heavier weight rider, you want to go with a tyre with decent puncture protection and a heavier weight casing. That's going to give you a much more stable tyre that if you're hitting corners really hard and you're moving the tyre around, something with a lighter casing can roll, can deform, can burp, or can even rip. Confused yet? There's loads of variables with tyres which can make it seem difficult to get the right one. So let's look at the main points. Tread pattern is determined by the dirt, soft, hard, loose or mud, and the style of riding. Low and fast tread for XC and endurance, bigger, more aggressive tread for enduro and downhill. The casing is the construction. Heavier weight with more protection for more aggressive riding, rocky or hard hitting terrain or bigger riders. Lighter weight for cross-country riders, smooth lightweight riders or mellow trails. Size-wise, thinner tyres cut through mud and are fast rolling. Wider tyres can float across terrain, so fat tyres at the extreme, 5 inches wide, can ride on sand and snow. A more normal trail tyre is likely to be 2.2 to 2.4 inches. If you haven't done already, check out Doddy's video touring the Vittoria factory. It's super interesting to see actually how tyres are built. Plus we've got loads of other videos on tubeless, tubeless and tyre pressure, another big consideration. Anyway, I'm off to make the most of some winter sunshine before it starts raining.